name is Nye McGee with EUR Web. Thank you for giving me your time today to speak about The Young Wife. I had a chance to watch it this morning, and it reminded me, I don't know how familiar you are with the style of old school independent filmmaker John Cassavetes, who's one of my favorite filmmakers. It just took me back to his style of filmmaking, which I really enjoyed that. So thank you so much for that approach.
Thank you for that. That's very, very kind. And I enjoy it too. And I think that I love it. So yes, thank you.
And you also did a good job. And I mean this as a compliment, what I'm about to say. You also, I don't know if this was your goal, but I remember at one point looking down at my time code as I was watching the film, and I was at 23 minutes in. And I said, I'm only 23 minutes into this film, and these people have exhausted my soul. So I can only imagine how the bride feels. Like, I don't know if that was the filmmaker's intention, but we all want to run away and escape at this point. So
That's good. That's how you're supposed to feel. Yeah.
you did a good job there. Okay, so let me kick things off by asking you what inspired you to create The Young Wife, and what themes were you most interested in exploring through this story?
I was inspired by or I was interested in exploring this idea that particularly for women, as you attain things like becoming a wife or becoming a mother, what I've noticed as I go through these different stages of life and of personhood, what I've noticed is that there's like a dimming in people's eyes when I say that I'm a wife. When you say that you're a mother, it's like, oh, how nice. And it's like your whole identity becomes that, as opposed to having this whole like being and this whole personhood that you still have and like this whole like universe inside you that you still have. It becomes, how are you connected to other people, and how can I like essentially how can I assess your worth based on those connections. And I just thought that was so fascinating because I have no issue with those identities. I love it. I'm having a great time. I love being a mom. Like I find that those identities contain universes within them, and those universes just add to the universe I feel within me. And so I have found it so fascinating how limiting those identities felt like when coming from outside. And so I wanted to make a story about this person who is going through something that she doesn't really think is that big a deal. Like she's not really that, it's not really a story about a woman who's like, it's not a will they or won't they. It's not, is she gonna make it to the altar? Are they gonna like it's not really about that. It's not really about their relationship. It's about her and her life and all the things that she's going through, and climate change and her feelings about capitalism and her job and her friends and her relationships with her grandmother-in-law and like all of this stuff. It's about death, it's about life, it's about all of this. And she's wrestling with these things on a day that just happens to be the day of her wedding. Um, and so I was just really interested in creating somebody who I felt had a very boundless, or whose potential I felt was very boundless, and who was by society being bound by these labels, was being bound. I was trying to show how boundless she actually is.
On that note, I mean, Kiersey Clemons, fabulous actress, Leon Bridges, they both bring unique talents to their roles. So, what led you to cast them as the lead characters, and how did they influence the film's development?
Kiersey, I find that she is truly one of our greatest actors right now. And I say that, and I say it sometimes and then I laugh because it's like, oh my God, I'm being so vulnerable when I express that. But I really honestly believe that, particularly for young people, it was, since we've grown up on like seeing our image constantly, I find that we can be very like body conscious in a way that limits us and limits what we're allowing ourselves to express through our bodies. But what I find with Kiersey is that she is an actor who is so aware of how she can use her body and how she can use her face, how she can use her nose, how she can use her ears, how she can use an expression falling, that she could play this whole role without saying a word. And I honestly feel like you would feel pretty much the same way by the end of it. And so casting her was very easy, because I knew that I needed to cast somebody who would be giving whole monologues about one thing while actually with her whole body saying something totally else. And I needed her to be able to do that with a camera in her face for like 2 hours. So she killed it. And then with Leon, I was really drawn to the idea of casting a musician because in a lot of the other parts of the ensemble, like when you build an ensemble, it's never really just about, if you do it well, it's never really just about one person. Obviously, you can choose one person and then build it around them, but I like to think of it more as like it's all being built at the same time. And so, like, all the pieces are coming together at the same time. So, like casting River's little sister Fern, Lukita, that happened. Honestly, I knew I wanted to work with her in this role since I saw her in Generation on HBO Max like years ago. So I knew that I wanted her to be a part of an ensemble before I knew anybody else in the movie. And it's such a small role, but it's just like I can feel how she would play in an ensemble. Um, and so I cast a lot of comedians in a lot of different roles, and that I knew would add a lot of necessary comedy to what could be very heavy at times. And so I knew that for River, we needed somebody who could understand just like I mean, quite honestly, like who felt very attuned to the poetic nature of being alive. And I felt like musicians just embody that really well. I've seen him perform. I love his music. And it felt like that sweetness that River requires was very present in him when he was performing. And it is. I feel like you could see it on screen too. So
As I was watching this, I couldn't help but think about, because I come from a filmmaking background, went to film school and all that stuff. And so I'm watching this film, and of course, anybody that goes to film school, your first thoughts are, okay, what was the budget? How long did it take her to film this?
yeah.
How long did it take for her to go from idea to script to production? How
Mm.
long did she shoot? How challenging was it to raise the funds? How
Yeah.
much input did she have from outside
Yeah.
resources? So, how much can you tell us, Miss, about the
That's such a good
production
question. I never
process?
know how much I can say, but anyway, what was our, I honestly don't know what the final, or don't remember what the final budget was, but I know that when I wrote it, I had a larger budget because we were set up elsewhere. And so when we switched and had to find a different production company, it was for a smaller budget level. And so that necessitated, of course, quickly asking myself, okay, how do I communicate this in the script when I was at this budget level, but now I'm trying to do it at a different level? What is the essential thing to get from this scene? So that was a great exercise and a necessary one. We shot for 20. Every time I answer this question, I'm mixing it up with Selah and the Spades. And so which was my first feature film. So I'm pretty sure we shot for 24 days, but that might have been the Selah numbers. And if it is, then we shot for 30 days. And we shot in Darien, Georgia, coast of Georgia, gorgeous. I'd never been down there before, but the natural environment, the biodiversity along the coast down there fit perfectly for the story. We did not have, in fact, maybe it was 2040. We didn't have enough time. Like the shoot was not long enough. We were shooting on location in this tiny house, which looks so great on camera, but because you've been in film, like if it looks that small on camera, please imagine how small it was in real life. Like, oh my gosh. So just the logistics of that, and also like dealing with weather, dealing with like having storms and having to shut down, like things of that nature. And we were still during the period of like COVID restrictions for the unions, which was great. Nobody got COVID, so everybody was safe. That's awesome. But it's like it's this added strain of financials and logistics and whatnot. So the shoot was wild, but it was so much fun. We had the best time. I like doing these interviews, and press has been great. Like listening to cast talk about it because it sounds like summer camp. It sounds like we were having an amazing time, and we really were because we were all collaborating together. It was a very collaborative atmosphere, very creative. I started writing in 2020, like wait, was it 2020 or 2019? I started writing in 2019 after Selah premiered at Sundance, and then I finished writing in 2020. I mean, I finished writing in 2020, probably the end of 2020, beginning of 2021. And then we set up with Film Nation later in 2021 because we shot in 2022, right? Did we shoot because we shot in 20? Oh my God. Because we shot in 2022. So I started writing in 2019, and we shot in 2022.
Oh, right on. Very good. Because sometimes you interview some filmmakers and they're like, well, it's 10 years in the making.
I
So,
know. I mean, my first film, I was working on that for 10 years before I made it.
yeah.
So go so quickly on this one was a fascinating experience. I'm so used to like marinating in it and living with it and having to just recalibrate. But this, it was cool. You just got to make it. It was
Very
awesome.
good.
Yeah.
So I'm reading here that the critics have praised The Young Wife for its, and here's the quote, intimate, profound, and visually gorgeous presentation. So can you
Mm.
elaborate on your approach to the film's visual style and how it enhances the narrative?
Yeah, we are definitely influenced by expressionism, and wanted to, that was honestly our leading principle for the film is expressionism. So we're not really concerned with, we got to shoot the camera over here to capture this person because they're talking, and then back over here, and then see the location and, all the sort of establishing shots and how you cover a scene. We never covered scenes, like we never shot coverage. Jomo and I, we worked together before we did Sell in the Spades together in this one. We don't shoot coverage, which can be very terrifying for people who are only used to really traditional ways of telling a story, I guess. But for us, it's like, why would we waste our time shooting coverage when that's not capturing the emotion of what we're trying to express? So for us, we try to essentially we follow what we call emotional cores. So for each scene, we are all that we're doing as we're building our visual looks from scene to scene is tracking and following the emotional core. And then, if we know that Celestina, when she's in this frame of mind, feels like this, it becomes very obvious where you're like, oh, well, obviously we're going to put that on a steady cam. And obviously, like, that's just wide. Like, we know we're wide. We're not close on her face. Like, we can just feel it because this is the emotion that we're trying to capture and express. So every choice, every color, every bit of clothing, everything, every choice is driven by what's the emotion we're trying to express. Because if we're not doing that, then I may as well just like sit down and write a short story. Like we have access to all of these senses. Why not use all of them to, try to recreate the chaos of life?
So how did you approach the development of the protagonist's character? What challenges did you face in depicting her journey through the chaos and expectations of her wedding day?
I think the most challenging thing about writing that character is that typically when particularly in America, when you make a movie, you write a story, you have a character, people expect that character to like change by the end. Like you go through a journey and then you change, and who you are at the beginning and who you are at the end are not the same person. But I really wanted to try. Oh, I hope it doesn't come back to bite me that I'm saying this publicly, but like I wanted to really try to write a character who didn't change that much. Like who the goal of her story isn't to change, it's to almost to just like express like the whole, and which is a change, but like that is like to go from being like essentially stopped up, like backed up in terms of communication, to being like very free in terms of communication. Like that's a huge shift. That makes a big difference. But like materially, in terms of the things that she wants or needs, what she needs and wants at the beginning and the end are basically the same thing. It's just that she has told everybody. And in telling everybody, it's not like they've said, oh, well, this is how you can do that, or this is going to help you, or they haven't really necessarily made it easier for her or better. It's just that she's like let them in on it. And she's like let them know how she's feeling. And that act of literally just communicating it is so freeing for her that that's the movie. Like it's just sometimes you gotta let people know how you're feeling. I think that's maybe the point of the movie.
What do you hope audiences take away from this film, particularly regarding the themes of marital expectations and personal identity?
I hope that people take from this film that like you really don't need to get married. Like getting married or not getting married is meaningless, basically. And the whole point is just the people. Getting married, not getting married, that's not the point. The point is just the people around you. And all of those people are as important as whoever you may or may not marry. It's not, this person is not some pinnacle of romance or love or whatever. It all of these people, all of them matter. And if you let them matter, if you like actively allow them to affect you and you actively give yourself permission to affect them back, um, I think you'll feel yourself transcend a little bit past some stuff. I think there's a lot of blockage in our society, and I think that I'm just hoping people allow themselves to attach to this journey that these people are going on through this film and just like ride the wave and like let the portal take you to the other side. That's all.
Very good. I
Same.
really enjoyed this film, so thank you so much for giving me your time today to speak about this. And I'm looking forward to sharing this conversation with my readers. Thank you so much.